guys, it's Kelly here, and this week we are celebrating Neat and Tangled's 4th birthday. Whoop whoop! So this is part of a blog hop. This set I'm going to be using today is part of a special release. It's just for their birthday, and this set is called Little Stinker. It's a little skunk. It's got adorable little sentiments and a little envelope in it. And so I thought this skunk, he's holding a sign, or it could be a card envelope. Depending upon how you put them together, but I thought it would be super cute to have him sitting on a pile of cards. So I stamped him high up, and then I'm going to do the cards underneath after I mask him. If you are watching this on YouTube, I will have links below to the Neat and Tangled website as well as the blog post. And if you're watching this before August 12th of 2016, there's prizes to be won. There's a $100 gift card and two $50 gift cards that'll be taken from the comments on the blog hop. So make sure you check that out. You have an opportunity to win some super cute stuff. So here I'm just stamping this out, and it's just the lines for the envelope. So once I get the 3 stamped that are going to be on the top, I'm going to go in with a Copic Safe marker. This is EK Success journaling pen, and just a ruler. Mine's a T-square, but I'm not using it that way at this particular moment. And just draw it back in those lines. Now, after I got the first stamps down, I just used, you'll see me, I just used regular Post-it notes to mask it. But I want to warn you that how I normally mask is I stamp out my first objects, I mask them, and then I stamp out the next round of objects, and then I mask them. And so for this one, though, it was kind of, because I didn't take the time to cut out complete masks, I just used the square Post-it notes. Part of it does overhang. So when I stamp the first one, you'll see on the left, it's totally fine because the masked parts are on the bottom. When I stamp the second one, I should have moved that top mask because the part that it's overhanging is actually where part of the envelope should be stamped. And I didn't realize it until after I stamped it, and then I moved the Post-it, and you can see that there's like a gap where the rest of that envelope should be, but it isn't. So I had to draw it back in by hand. It wasn't that big of a deal, but just so you're aware and you don't make the same mistake that I did. So as we know, skunks are black and white. We're going to get into the Copic coloring. The way that this adorable little skunk is drawn is he, she, however you're feeling it, has a little tuft of hair on top. And when I think of skunks, even though this is not true, like all the cartoon skunks that I think of have white faces, and I knew that that tuft of hair should be white because that would be in the center. So I started with my white, and I just added very minimal shading to the bottom of the skunk's face with a C1, and then I'm going back in on top of the C1 with the C3 for the hair. Anytime you're coloring, if you watch my YouTube channel, you've probably heard me say this like 100 times. Anytime you're coloring something white, you should leave actual white in it. So I'm using a super light hand and small flicking motions. That's a word. Small flicking motions, and just to give it the appearance of hair, and then I'm blending that back out with the C1, but I'm leaving white areas. Now, in order to get some light source shading, I am adding a shadow behind the hair, on a little bit on the left hand side of her face, and on the nose, to the left of the nose, because that would protrude out and it would cast a shadow. But then I'm also going to, just at the top underneath that little tuft of hair, I'm going to shade in some black. So the way that I do my black is I start with the cool grays. I'm doing the same thing that I did before for the tail, the light flicking motions, just to get some good blending. For the hands and the feet, it really isn't necessary to do the flicking motions because it's such a small area. You can just do little lines. I prefer to start with my lightest color because if I start with my darkest, I get a little bit heavy-handed. But you do whatever works for you. If working from darkest to lightest is how that's gonna most benefit you, then do that. There isn't a right or a wrong way to do this. It's just a way in which you're most comfortable. When I first started coloring with Copics, everything that I saw was like, start with your darkest, start with your darkest. So I did, and then I never liked the way that it worked. So then I finally was like, you know what? I'm just going to start with my lightest and see how it goes. Another thing you want to keep in mind when you're coloring is you should always be following the direction that your object is drawn in. So, like, maybe not so much for the hands or the feet, that doesn't matter, but the way that that tail is arched, you want to make sure that you're following the line that's already there. So the way that Danielle drew this is basically, so that there's a curve. So when I'm doing the feathering, I am feathering it in toward the curve of the tail, and I'm not doing straight lines, I'm doing curved lines because the line that is drawn is curved. So, and then I'm just going to build out from my lightest to my darkest. Before I bought the 100, which is black, I would have stopped here, and it still would have looked black in comparison because the C9 is so dark. I bought the 100 to just add in just like a line of black, and it really just like pops up the contrast a little bit. I have full set syndrome, but that doesn't mean that you have to have full set syndrome. So don't feel like you need all of the Copics. You can totally work with what you have to get a look that you like. So you'll see me, I had added just a little bit of a darker area where her tail curves. I don't know if it's a her or him because I keep interchanging them. It is whatever. But where the tail curves, I felt like that area would be darker and the highlight would be on top where it's round. So I did add just a little bit of dark there. And I mean, at the end of it, by the time it's all blended out and everything, I was really happy with the way that it came out. The lightest C color that I used for the black was the C3. That was my quote unquote highlight color. But I did all of them, the same way with that, with the flicking motion. And the C3, there was only very little of it, and it was only where it really would be the lightest. Everything, leading up to that is still like those darker, richer colors. So I'm just going to cap off the black with the C3, and then on the face, because it's blending out into that white, I did blend it out with the C1, but I didn't do that on the tail or the hands. It just wasn't necessary because those objects are black. Because I was trying to blend black fur into white fur on the face, I felt like it needed to be blended out just a little bit more. So then from there, I am going to add some light source shading like I did on the face to that sign. So my light source is usually in the top right hand corner, so there would be shadows on the left, and then the feet and the hands would cast a shadow onto the sign or paper or whatever you want to call it. And that just helps, to give it a little bit of a, 3D feel so that it doesn't look like a two-dimensional object. And just like I did with the white on the face and the hair, I only used C1 and C3 because I wanted the paper to still look white. So now we're going to get into coloring the envelopes. And I have, like when I'm stumped for a color combination, I have a board on my Pinterest that's called Fabulous Color Combinations. And it's just anything that I see that I really, really love. And so when I was looking for something, I was like black and white and what? I found one that I had pinned that was black and white, a light pink, a dark pink, and a gold. And I was like, I totally love that. That's a beautiful color combination. I'm going to use that because my skunk is black and white. So when I'm doing the shading on the envelopes, I'm adding minimal shading, really, because this particular one was made to be light. I just did underneath like the lip of the envelope, and I'm heavy on the left-hand side. I'm going to color a few more just like these in the same light colors before switching to the dark. The envelope that's underneath is going to be the darkest, so the highlight's going to be in the center of that one because everything else is on top of it. So for this one, I started with my lightest color as a RB04, which on those lighter envelopes is actually my darkest color. So they're all the same family of pinks. So everything is gonna be fluid and is gonna match and go together, but it's just a way to kind of mix it up. So again, lightest to darkest, darkest to lightest, and this was really, really quick and simple. Just because, most of that shading is going to be on, for this one, the center. And then I also use the same color combination on a couple of other envelopes. I'm not going to show you every envelope or we'll be here forever. But eventually I'm going to show you every envelope just in a different way. You'll see what I mean when we get there. So once I had that colored, I realized that I did want ones that were like super light. So what I did was I shaded the envelope with my C's, the C1 and the C3, with the intention of maybe doing white to kind of mix it up. And I didn't really like the way that that looked. So what I ended up doing was leaving the C shading there and then just covering the whole thing with a really light pink, which was the RV00. So it still gave it a pink hue, but it had some depth. Now I realized that the one that's supposed to be underneath all of them was not nearly dark enough. It just looked flat. So I brought in another darker color. This is a RV69. And then instead of my lightest color being RV04, my lightest color ended up being RV06. So again, you can just use whatever you have on hand. I just felt like that middle one needed to be darker to be set back, and you can see already it falls to the background. This is a EK Success. It's almost like a paint pen, like if you were coloring like with metallic gold foil. There's a gold and the silver in the pack. So I did all the hearts gold, and then I used that same journaling pen that you saw me use earlier to just add some fun little doodles and accents to the envelopes to just kind of, mix up the design, make them different so it wasn't quite so plain and the card was more interesting. You can do this or not do this, whatever floats your boat. So once I did that with the black pen, I also added some accents with a white jelly roller pen as well. I did some swirls and some polka dots and just, just to kind of mix it up. You can do whatever makes you happy. So here I'm going to start adding in some shadows to make the cards really appear like they're stacked on top of each other. I started with a C3 because I felt like that would be dark enough, especially on those lighter envelopes and the white background. And again, because my light source is coming in from the top left, the shadows would be to the, the light sources from the top right, the shadows would be to the bottom left. And then for the darker colors, I went in with a C5 and put the shadows in on top of the darker ones with that. I will warn you with the C3, when I used it on top of the dark pink colors, because it's lighter, it did pick up some of that pink. So I just kind of scribble it off on I'm working on the Simon Says stamp grid paper. So I'm just scribbling that off so I don't carry the pink over into my card base. So just adding the shadow to the skunk, and then that's basically going to be it for the shadows. I wanted there to be a little bit of a background just to kind of break up all of that pink. So I feel like blue is a neutral. I love me some blue. So I decided that where the shadows were is where I would do the darkest blue, which is not even a dark blue. It's a BO2. But I wanted the background to be softer. So you can get the same look if you masked and did distress ink, like a tumbled glass or Salty Ocean with a super light hand. So once I had the BO2 down, I outlined everything else with the B00, and then I'm going in with a B quadruple 0 and just feathering it out kind of into the rest of the background so everything blends out into the white. I was really happy with it. And then I realized that I just made a Valentine. Like, that happened. So if you were looking to make a Valentine, just leave it there. If not, I'm going to show you how to switch that up too. So I picked out some colors I knew would play well with pinks. You don't want to like put green on top of pink, or what else would be bad? Like that way it would just make brown. Like anything that's a complementary color, you don't want to use that. So you want to use something that's going to mix nicely. So I picked out some yellows, some purples, and some blues to cover up these envelopes, because as much as I would love to send Danielle a Valentine because I love her and she's one of the sweetest people I know, we're celebrating a birthday here, folks. So I picked some stronger colors to go over the darker pinks. Like here I picked a stronger orange, so that would, kind of play nicely. Here I had originally put a BO4 over these envelopes, but it wasn't purple enough, so I switched to a V15. I brought in this. It's actually called Peach. That's the name of the color. It's a red, and I just didn't like the way that it worked with the rest of the colors in the background. So here, instead of leaving my other shading like I had been doing, I did have to bring in some other colors to get what I wanted. So this was I forgot to show you, and that's my bad. I was kind of in the zone. This was R35 and an R29. And so I just used those. And because the colors were so light, that wasn't really a problem. I did use two of the envelopes. I left them pink. This blue, I wanted to be a little bit stronger because as I was layering these colors, they started to get more bold, which I'm totally fine with. But then the pale ones just looked kind of out of place. So I brought in a B, 02 and 04. And then here, this one, I colored it with the same blue colors, but it was blending into the background too much. So I just went over it with the same B15 that I already had. I'm going to use my Mini Misty to stamp the sentiment because now we've made this one layer panel and we don't want to mess it up by, misplacing the sentiment. I'm going to be using some black ink by Simon Says Stamp. It's a super crisp ink that's great for sentiments. I'm going to stamp that down. And it just lines right up. Great thing about the Misty. And then this is Clear Wink of Stella on the hearts. And that is the entire card that we managed to save from a Valentine to a birthday card. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you will check out the rest of the blog hop. Like I said, links below. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.